Hello and welcome to another fantastic episode of the Fantastic Mr. Podcast. I am Justin Strange here with my lovely co-hosts Zach Briggs and Jake Kramer. Say hi, guys.
May the force be with you.
So on
Yo.
that segue, today we're talking about Star Wars, and the Force is strong with this episode. We're going to do or do not, because there is no try, and head to a galaxy far, far away. First off, how old were you guys when you first saw any Star Wars movie? Let's start with you, Zach, because I feel like I feel like you're the bigger Star Wars fan than any of us. So why don't we start with you?
I think my first memories come. I was a young lad, 1999, and my parents and I were coming home to the Seattle area where my grandparents picked me up. We were visiting my aunt and uncle in Baltimore, Maryland. My uncle used to be in the business of news, but he was a sports broadcaster. But anyways, we get back from our long plane trip from the East Coast, and we decided to go see Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. It was in Edmonds, Washington. I remember vividly seeing the pod racing scene, and that was just out of this world for me.
It's working.
Yeah. And I really didn't have much to say in terms of critical points, because I was just a kid, and I was just
a young lad.
I was enamored by the visual effects, as I think a lot of people were, because this was the first Star Wars movie that revolutionized many techniques of filmmaking that are utilized to this day. And
was Yoda a puppet?
Yoda was a puppet. I thought he looked like he was. I didn't think at this time. I always thought he looks kind of high.
He looks high in Empire.
Yeah,
he's just old in Empire though.
But no, I remember walking out of the theater. It was a dark parking lot, and just like wow. And we stayed for the credits as well, because I was even at that young age, I was fascinated by the music of John Williams.
So your first. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
1.
Yeah.
After that, I remember my mom at one point. It might have been before episode 1, but I think it might have been after. I can't say for sure. I would like to say that my parents bought me the 1993, I believe, release of the original trilogy. And if you've seen the trailer for this box set, and they promote it as the one last time, the last time you'll be able to see the unedited versions, and it is the case. It has none of the specialized.
What does that one look
effects.
like? What does the box art look like? I guess.
I'll get it 1 second.
Because I think I have the same. You look how excited he is. He's like a little boy. Oh yeah.
This is one of them.
I have that one.
Like A New Hope has Darth Vader on it, as Empire Strikes Back has a Stormtrooper, and Return of the Jedi has Yoda.
Yeah, I have like an older version of those VHS tapes too.
Oh, even older. Probably 80 something.
I'd have to. Yeah, it was. I think it was like 83 or 86. I can't remember exactly, but it says like CBS at the bottom of it and stuff.
Oh, yep.
But I also have that version. And then I think I have another version. Did they come
1997?
Yeah, okay.
Specialized edition. Yeah.
Yeah, I got those two. And then I also have Empire on Laserdisc.
Mm-hmm.
Need to get the rest of them. What about you, Jake? Tell us your Star Wars introduction story.
Man, I was probably like 8 or 9, I think. And my parents were watching it, and I just like walked through the living room.
Which one?
It was the I guess it was the New Hope, I think. Yeah, it was New Hope. And it was the trash compactor scene.
Mm-hmm.
No.
When Luke's getting attacked by the Dainoga.
The trash compactor? Yeah.
And it terrified me. And so I ran out of the room, and I refused to watch it for like years later.
Oh man. You probably ran out of the room as fast as Zach went to get his VHS tape.
Yeah. I was like,
I love that. I love that scene.
And then I probably watched it for real, like when I was 13 or 14, not knowing that's the same movie that it was from. Because I'm sure if I knew it was the same movie, I would have refused to watch it.
Wow,
that's funny.
Yeah,
yeah.
I like that scene. I like that scene because at the end, right before C-3PO, he's able to finally get in contact with him, and Luke's like, C-3PO, oh my God, turn it off, turn the crash impactor off or whatever. And then R2-D2 ends up doing it, and they're like cheering. He's like, oh no, they're dying.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know why but I thought that was so funny the first time I saw it.
Their screams sound like they're dying.
Yeah, it did kind of sound like they were like, oh my
celebrations.
God. Yeah. But they were like celebrating. So the first time I watched Star Wars, I was probably, you're going to hate me for this, but I think I've told you guys this. I was probably like mid-20s when I first saw it, only because I was really closed-minded as a kid. So I didn't want to watch Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or Star Trek or anything like that. Now I love all those. I don't really care for Star Trek, but I do love Lord of the Rings and Star Wars. And so my friends, so at the time, Netflix was starting the streaming thing. Like they had been doing the streaming thing for a while, but they still had, I think you still can get DVDs.
Oh yeah.
In the mail, but I think
phasing that out.
I would say they're I think they're phasing it out. They're discontinuing the service. But back then my friends had Netflix streaming, but they also had the DVDs, and we had, I don't know how we came into this conversation, but they were like, we should watch all the Star Wars movies. And so I was like, yeah, I'm down. And so they were like, do you want to watch it like the order they came out, or do you want to watch it in the order like of the timeline? And I was like, you know what? Let's do the
great discussion.
All right. I was like, let's do the timeline. Let's let my first, I don't know why. In retrospect, I think I would have rather watched it the other way now, but we watched it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because at the time that's all there was. And so that was my first introduction to Star Wars. And I was like, this is pretty cool. And I don't care what anybody says. I like the political discussions in the prequels.
Oh, I do. I think that's probably one of the best things about them, honestly.
Yeah. I really enjoyed the political stuff.
I think it's one of the reasons that I enjoy Andor so much is it delves further into that political environment.
I forgot about that show. And I also really like the rise of, the chancellor, or what was he, senator, and then a chancellor, and then chancellor, and then what? Emperor? Talking about Palpatine?
Yeah,
he was a
Palpatine.
senator. He was chancellor, senator, then emperor.
Yeah.
Well, emperor was his own title.
Yeah, and it was, and we talked about this not too long ago, but I watched this thing on Hitler, right? A documentary on Hitler, and it was very, very similar to how Hitler came to power. Was the way the emperor came to power was
for manipulation.
Yeah, he pretty much became this lower version. He wanted to be president, right? But he lost, and so he became like the chancellor. I think he was a chancellor at the time.
He was, yeah.
And then he was able, whenever something, I forget exactly what happened, but something happened to where he convinced the president to give him power, and I think he was supposed to have given it back, which is what the emperor did. He's like, give me all the power, we'll get through this, and then I'll give it back when it's over. And he totally didn't do that.
I think there was a coup of sorts that resulted in the burning down of a building, and that kind of led to people believing in Hitler.
You're right. Yeah, there was like because he blamed it on, I think he blamed it on the Jewish people and said, "Oh, this is a perfect opportunity to blame it on these guys, and then I can look like this great person." And so
I don't remember that in Star Wars.
Well, this was history, but yeah, you're right. It didn't. I don't think that happened in Star Wars, but just like that, and like,
well, I mean, maybe the Mace Windu and the Jedi.
The attack on my life
attacked me,
has left me
scarred
deformed.
Me. Yeah, there you go. Totally different comparisons to make apparent to the listeners. We're not saying Hitler's completely the same as Palpatine,
but their rise to power is very similar. And like, even with Order 66, he Hitler did kind of the same thing where he started killing off all these different officers that, didn't see things the way he saw things and all this stuff. So it just made me think, and we had talked about having, maybe an episode around that, but I don't think we need a whole episode for that. It's just interesting to, talk about it now. So
yeah, George Lucas was inspired by so many aspects of history.
Yeah, and that's what I figured. Yeah. I figured I was like, I bet you he did this on purpose. Like,
George Lucas watched World War II dogfights to get the footage for the
space battles.
Space battles.
Oh,
for the Star Wars.
Yeah, Star Wars. So anyway, let's
wait. I want to read the Phantom Menace, the first couple lines. I wonder what people were thinking in the theaters. So excited to see episode 1. This is 1999, and the last movie came out in 1983. I've seen the videos on YouTube of the news coverage of folks waiting in line, but I'm curious at what people, once they get their butts in the seats, what their thoughts are when they saw this. Yeah. Turmoil has engulfed the Galactic Republic. The taxation of trade routes to outlying star systems is in dispute. Hoping to resolve the matter with a blockade of deadly battleships, the greedy Trade Federation has stopped all shipping to the small planet of Naboo. I mean, I think that probably went through a lot of people's heads. Like, what did I just get myself into?
Yeah.
And I was kind of dumbfounded for different reasons when I saw the opening, the Last Jedi opening crawl. But yeah, but what do you think people's thoughts were, or what did you guys think when you hear that?
When I hear it, I'm like,
you see it.
Now I'm like, oh, that makes sense. It's very political. It doesn't sound like, a space battle, right? It sounds but back when I first watched it, I don't think I ever really paid any attention to it, but
Yeah, I think when I watched it as a kid, I was just excited to be there.
Yeah. You weren't really listening or reading, paying attention to it. You're just in the music and cool letters.
You're just, oh my God, Star Wars cool. experience.
I want to compare episode 1 opening crawl to episode 4, but let's see.
Some of the crawls utilize more punctuation than others, I've noticed, and some of the crawls use all caps for certain words for emphasis, but not all crawls did that.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the opening crawl for episode 4, not the whole thing. I'm just going to do the first couple of. It is a period of civil war. Rebel spaceships striking from a hidden base have won their first victory against the Galactic Empire. So you think about that versus what you just read, and it does sound a little more boring, right? One sounds, just reading this sounds a little more action packed,
Yeah.
During the battle,
just the diction itself, like engulf, turmoil, like it's a little bit more complex. I feel like
is very wordy. Yeah. And I think Lucas as a writer is just very wordy. I remember I've watched, clips with Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford talk about kind of what they went through filming New Hopes and stuff. And they complained all the time that the script they're given was just so like bogged down with like all this minutia and like technical stuff that's not gonna make sense to anyone.
Yeah.
So he's always been like that. And I think the prequels just gave him the ability to have his way and not have enough people tell him no. I think the original trilogy really benefited from having him being kind of a new director, and people were able to tell him no, hey, let's do something different than that. Think about it. Whereas now when he did the prequels, well, he's not just a new director anymore. Now he's George Lucas. And he made Star Wars, and so people are afraid to tell him no. And so he kind of got to put more of himself into it.
Totally.
Not to say that he's a bad writer or it's a bad story, because it's not. It's great. Yeah. It's just, I don't think there's any debate that the original trilogy was kind of saved in the edit.
As a kid, and to this day, it stood out to me. And it's amazing that it kind of did at such a young age I noticed this. But the style of dialogue, I felt like in the original trilogy, it was a lot more casual compared to the prequel trilogy, where it seemed like they were from you could compare it to, I can make comparisons to to real life. But you guys notice the dialogue is structured differently compared to in the original trilogy versus prequel, where they seem a little bit more Shakespearean, more stilted, and not just delivery, but what they're provided in terms of the script.
Yeah, so much more.
Why is that?
Way more formal.
Maybe
I think a big part of it is the content of the prequels, because it's all
that's what I was. Yeah, that's
about
what I was
the
going to say.
policy, the politicization that's going on, and also I think it's George Lucas. That's how he writes and how he talks.
Well, yeah, and he's older at this point, so even as you get older, you learn more words, and you know what I mean. You learn newer ways to say things. But I
hate
think
sand. Okay.
Yeah, well, exactly. But he
everywhere.
Yeah, I think it also has something to do with what was going on within the actual story. So he had to match the opening crawl to it. Whereas, in the original trilogy, it was mostly, space battles and lightsaber battles and stuff like that.
Yeah, I feel like the original trilogy is like you had your ragtag team of characters, and prequel, you have a serious tone of these majestic, robed
freaking Amidala, man,
creatures and humans and queens, royalty, stuff we've never seen in the original trilogy. I think the most we got in terms of serious, well-structured dialogue was in A New Hope, and featuring the scenes with the Imperial officers, especially around the round table with Grand Moff Tarkin, and the whole discussions of the Death Star and that one guy's disagreements and skepticism surrounding the Force, which led to him being force choked by Vader. I mean, there's this internal struggle amongst the Imperial officers to have their voices heard, and you hear about some emperor in the background, dissolving governments. Probably, I wonder at this time if Palpatine's in Coruscant. We just don't know. But I felt like in A New Hope, it had the best demonstration of how proper dialogue and interesting politics can be portrayed
in space.
In space. Newt Gunray, remember that guy? One of those alien creatures, one of the
little
part of the
little
Separatists?
flies. I think Newt Gunray, that race is what would have happened if flies became the dominant species on Earth. They look like flies. I can't see anything else.
I was reading a book, and it's a prequel. It's now considered Legends, but it takes place before episode 1. It's very political. But it's fantastic because it talks about the Separatists and the Trade Federation and their supply. They're producing weapons for planets all across the galaxy, and they're not really aligned with one political ideology. They're just trying to appease everyone. That's kind of interesting, and also goes really in depth into Palpatine's gradual rise to power, even though it doesn't stress too much. That's a different book. That would be the Darth Plagueis book. At least in his early days, when he killed his master Darth Plagueis, which led him to having this ultimate plan that we see in the prequels.
Yeah, but the books are really interesting too. There's so much media revolving around Star Wars now. I read the Revenge of the Sith novelization, and that provided a lot of insight about, surprisingly, about the relationship between Anakin and Mace Windu, and kind of like why Mace had a purple lightsaber. And so basically, the thing with Mace Windu, which is why he didn't trust Anakin, is because he is kind of like a seer ability that the Force would show him different outcomes. And so when Obi-Wan and Anakin rescue Palpatine at the beginning of Revenge of the Sith, they land and he's there on the tarmac when they climb out, and he says that the book says that he has a vision involving those three, and it could split in two different ways, and that's why and one was really good and one was really bad, and that's why that's what created the mistrust between Mace Windu and Luke. And it also goes into more of Luke's like confliction
You mean
between like his duty and
Anakin's?
Padme and things like that.
Anakin's?
So
Anakin's not Luke? You mean Anakin?
Hmm?
You mean Anakin?
what did
You
I
said-
say?
You said
Luke.
Luke.
Oh dang. Well, I think our audience is smart enough to realize.
So yeah, I really want to start reading the books, but man, there's just so much.
And where do you
So
want to
many-
start? You want to start with Legends or
So remind me. I've looked this up before. I've researched it, and it's completely gone now. So remind me the difference between, because it's what, Legends and what?
The canonical
Expanded
Legends
universe.
are now non-canonical.
Okay.
The Legends was a series of books that George Lucas opened up to various authors to continue the Star Wars universe. And there was very simple rules. You could essentially write whatever you wanted, but you had to continue the work from the previous books, essentially. You had to continue the work from the previous books, and you had to finish in a way that it could be continued. So it was this really cool collaboration of writers, essentially like today we would consider it fan fiction, but they're essentially expanding the universe one author at a time. And
Interesting.
all sorts of crazy stuff happened. But now it's all non-canonical.
sadly. And I think when it comes to original trilogy era Legends books, the Thrawn trilogy, beginning with Heir to the Empire, is one of the staples of recommended reads. And that's, I don't know if you know who Thrawn is, but he's the blue chiss. That's the species and part of the remnants of the Empire. And anyways, it also goes into Luke's what he's up to, Han and Leia after 30 years, I believe, after the events of the Return of the Jedi. It's a great place to start, I'd say. And so Timothy Zahn he's one of the hallmark writers for Star Wars books, even to this day. James Luceno, who wrote Cloak of Deception, which is the book I was talking about earlier, about the politics heavy book before episode 1. He's also great. I like his style of writing, even though it's kind of wordy. But Luceno, Zahn, there's a number of other great authors that have continued to write books, even in the what's considered the new canon.
Yeah, I'm looking at. I had downloaded a list a while back, and I'm looking at it now. So let's see. Contains every adult and young adult canon novel. So this is all canon. Man, there's a lot. So it looks like this is separated by category. Tell me if this sounds like familiar or if it's correct. You have the High Republic era, the Fall of the Jedi era, Reign of the Empire era, Age of Rebellion era, New Republic era, Rise of the First Order, and that's it.
Yeah, that sounds like canon
that sounds about
timeline.
right.
Yeah, that's all canon.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all canon.
As I was hearing High Republic, First Order,
Fall of the Jedi,
Yeah.
Reign of the Empire. Yeah. There's a lot of books, and there's like a little check, like you can check them off when you're done. I'm like, man, I'll never finish this.
I mean, if you enjoy reading and you like different
Man,
elements of the Star Wars universe,
I do,
you'll be
and
engaged.
like I remember when I was like, oh my god, there's books, so I started doing some research, and there was so much, but I am super interested in learning more about this expanded universe, regardless if it's canon or not. You know, even if it's
Same.
like a one-off. Like I would love to, but it's just hard to sit down and read because I know right when I sit down and start reading, I'm gonna start, dozing off. So it's hard to do it. But one day maybe I'll start reading and get somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah, there's got to be a great place to start that just sucks you in to the
like-
stories.
The first one is called The High Republic Tempest Runner. Have you heard of that one?
Mm-mm. I'm not really
Man.
familiar with the new canon books.
Oh, okay.
Speaking of the High Republic, I know we're talking about books, but I'm really excited to see what the Acolyte is going to be. It's going to be the Star Wars first foray into the High Republic era. It's coming out in next year, and I'm
a book?
really excited about it.
And High Republic versus Old Republic, I guess in High Republic's like closer to the events of like prequel trilogy, even though it's probably still like hundreds, maybe thousands of years. I guess
It's
probably more recent.
It's way back. It's when the Jedis were at their prime. It's when they were at their prime. It was the largest order. They had the most skilled masters. They were the most like it's the golden age of the Jedi, essentially.
So the Old Republic existed thousands of years ago, while the High Republic was only 200 years before the events of the prequel trilogy, according to internet.
So is the Legends books, is that not canonical?
Old Republic has been alluded to have some canon elements with like Revan, Darth Revan, and some other.
But officially.
Yeah, it's
so in certain aspects are.
Disney has kind of cherry picked things to keep from Legends. So like they kept Thrawn, they kept like the Old Republic, they've kept like Darth Revan and some main characters, and then thrown out like 85% of it. So they've kind of cherry picked some things that they want to keep and what they think within marketable
within the
new
series of books. No, okay. I guess
games. Yep.
What I'm confused is, and I've looked at, I don't know why I've forgotten this, but with the Legends books, they're not officially part of the Star Wars universe that we know, the Disney Star Wars universe.
Correct.
No. Okay.
That's why they're called Legends. So before, people, I think in general, referred to it as the expanded universe.
Yeah. Okay.
But when Disney was sold in 2012,
you mean
from Lucasfilm was sold to Disney.
Disney will never be sold.
What was the big whopping
Imagine,
price?
I would be terrified of the company that was able to buy Disney.
I just looked it up.
I think it's like 4 point something.
No,
imagine if Elon Musk bought Disney. He just uses AI to create everything.
Exactly.
I swear it's like 4.5.
I think the 4 something was Marvel, but oh yeah, you're right. 4.05 billion.
Oh, I was somewhat close then.
Yeah.
Just guessed.
I mean, you're like barely off. I think you're good.
How about 2000?
It's a thing. Whenever you Google stuff, it says people also ask, and one of the first one was, why was Lucasfilm sold to Disney?
Why is that?
It says
the answer.
It says, to put it simply, George didn't want to miss out on experiencing a normal life while he still had the chance. George acknowledged that the decision was extremely painful in an interview for the book, The Star Wars Archives, 1999 to 2005. I did read a little bit, and he knew he had said something like he knew that Disney would, I guess, I don't know about do a good job exactly, but they would continue on with it and still let him be a part of it, I think.
There was a time when Lucas had a plan for
another
multiple. Yeah, there was 9 films, and in an infamous video, I think on the Star Wars channel on YouTube, it was kind of PR-ish in a way, and understandably, but it's Kathleen Kennedy with George Lucas, and Kathleen Kennedy states that we plan to respect the vision of George Lucas when it comes to the Star Wars movies in the future, and referencing the sequel trilogy in particular. Lucas had frameworks for 7, 8, 9, and it's up for debate on how much of his work was actually used. And a lot of people are kind of anti Disney.
There's 7, 8, 9 plus scripts that are out there. You can actually find the scripts for the proposed scripts for his 7, 8, 9, and it's nothing. Luke has a wife. Han and Leia are married. They have kids. Their kids go off, and like one of, I think like Han's kids. This is kind of the same. I think one of Han's kids starts straying towards like the dark side, but they're like twins. So like one's a light side, and like one's a dark side, and it's wildly different.
Yeah, I watched this. It was like a little reel. It wasn't a long video, but it involved like Luke's grandchildren and stuff. From the person who made the video that it had involved Luke's grandchildren. That's the only thing I really remember, and I'm thinking, man, it's like way different than what if that was what George Lucas had originally planned or even thought about. Like, it's way different now than.
How would you feel if you're like your baby essentially for decades, and you sold it, and you had these talks with your buyer, you're now cradling your creation?
Disclaimer: don't sell your children.
That's important advice. Yeah, and he think it's referred to it in an interview with Charlie Rose at one time in an infamous PBS interview. Basically says this is your baby to George Lucas, and he says he agrees. But anyways, how would you feel if your creation and after your talks with the new owners of your baby, and they just stray away from your ideas? Would you say, okay, I'm at this point, I'm done. I don't want to think about it. I think the important part of a breakup and like a relationship is to not keep on checking back on how he or she is doing. I think that same analogy could be applied with Lucas's relationship with Star Wars. Like after it was apparent that Disney didn't want to go in his direction with the sequel trilogy, I feel like Lucas really just kind of stood on the sidelines and focused on other things in his life. But how would you feel if you saw what was proposed turns into something totally different? I mean, you have no control.
Yeah, I mean, I think I might be a little peeved, but I'd be like, ultimately, this was my decision. Now, I knew this could possibly happen, where they say one thing and do another. I don't know.
Happens all the time, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh, and especially in Hollywood, you could be like, I mean, here, think about it like this: like if you were to write a screenplay, right, and then you sell it, like they could say, "Oh yeah, we'll make this, in 2 years. We'll make this in 5 years," and then never do it, right? Or they'll say, we're gonna do some rewrites, but it'll stay relatively the same, and then completely change it. Happens all the time in Hollywood. So it's like, what do you
for something so as big as Star Wars, though?
But I mean,
yeah.
Here's the thing, though.
It's such a phenomenon around the globe.
It was. I don't think, and this might just be me talking. I don't think Star Wars was as big as a phenomenon before Disney bought it. Same with almost the same. Well, I wouldn't say the same with Marvel, because Marvel was like Iron Man came out and boom, this expanded universe instantly, almost instantly proposed. But with Star Wars, it had a huge fan base,
Toys.
But I guess you're right. The toys sold really well to kids, right? Not adults. But then whenever Disney bought Star Wars or Lucasfilm, then it becomes more mainstream.
Because you have a big company like Disney.
Exactly. And so,
but that could be we could debate all for hours on that, what we think about that. But I see how Disney has helped make Star Wars even more popular.
Because
I
now
think they've certainly repopularized it. I don't think you could say that it wasn't as big before. I don't think you can say that it wasn't as big as when Disney bought it. I just think it had gone out of its prime. During its prime, I think it was I would be willing to bet it was just as big, if not maybe bigger, with the amount of merchandising material that they made off everything.
Yeah, but
it was part of the nation's culture.
But if you maybe it's just me, right? If you liked Star Wars, if you liked Lord of the Rings, if you liked always playing video games, Pokemon, blah 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 blah, you were considered a geek, a nerd, and all this stuff, right?
That didn't apply to Star Wars, though.
I think
go back and look at the opening.
I'm not saying it wasn't popular. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that Disney made it more mainstream. Like you think about it. If you meet a girl, that's a better way to say it. If you meet a girl, right, and you say, let's go watch this new Star Wars movie before Disney bought it out, she might say yes. Chances are she'll say yes if she likes you and not enjoy it. But it seems like it's like the Wii, right? The Wii was made for casual gamers, old people, young people, blah, 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 blah. Well, then, and Star Wars was more niche before Disney bought it than it is now. And not saying niche might not be the right word, but it catered to a certain type of person, which was what we are now. Us three, right?
Man,
now my mom, might enjoy Star Wars because she doesn't enjoy Star Wars. But I don't
know. I think
I want to hear Jake's contrarian view.
I think I disagree with that. It was massively popular from the get-go. Everyone watched it. Literally everyone watched it. It was a cultural phenomenon. I think it waned, and like today, it waned, and so Disney brought a reawakening to a new generation.
I would agree with
Like
that.
kids today, it's more
Yeah.
popular with kids today than it was before Disney bought it.
Sort of.
But as a whole, like when it came out, it swept the nation.
Hmm.
So I think Disney did a good job of reintroducing it for a new generation that otherwise would probably leave it because they see it as a boomer show. Like, oh, mom and dad like it. Uncle Bill likes it. The
Uncle
guy
Bill.
down at the store likes it. I'm not going to watch it. That's dumb. It doesn't have VFX. Look at the graphics. They use puppets. That's stupid. And then Disney was able to come in and reimagine it to the youth's tastes today and modify it and modernize it so that
They certainly did that. They made it
palette.
like a Marvel movie,
I can't say that they made it more popular, but they definitely reawakened it and reintroduced it.
What do you mean a Marvel movie? When
like
you say
Marvel action comedy, it's very standard, a standard Marvel movie where
you disappointed in that change or with Star Wars? I mean, Star Wars has always had comedy, but the type of comedy is different.
Yeah, it's a little more in your face now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fine. I like Marvel movies. It's okay, but I
think
do
they're
kind of
doing
like
a better job with the TV shows than they did with the new movies.
Yeah, I agree.
With the comedy?
Like the post trilogy, I think altogether fell a little flat, but especially suffered from that Marvelization where they weren't able to have a serious moment. Any serious moment was always undercut through like a fart joke or like a your mama joke or something stupid.
Yeah.
They couldn't let the emotions sit. Whereas they do that in
what's
TV
a good
shows.
example?
TV shows, they're doing a wonderful job of having serious moments and having humor, but having it fit more in the universe that it lives in.
Yeah, I remember in The Last Jedi, Kylo Ren's shirtless and Swallow, the meme occurs, but he's shirtless and having this serious conversation with Rey, and Rey says, "Put on a towel," and that kind of ruined the tension building moment. For me, at least, and that's just one of many examples in the Rise in The Last Jedi as well. All that build up from the Force Awakens.
Yeah, I was just making that. Mm-hmm.
Making that trip up to the top of the mountain to greet Luke, and then Luke
takes his lightsaber and
he just throws it off over his shoulder in a comedic fashion. And after that, I was like, "What am I in for?"
Yeah.
That's me personally. That's the way I interpret it. Was this comedic gesture subverting of expectations for what reason? I mean, I feel like there's a way that could have done it more subtly, or just drop the lightsaber. But I don't want to get too deep into the nitty gritty of my complaints.
That's a whole other story. But
what are your thoughts on the I guess the style, the Marvel style in certain examples of the movies, the sequels?
For me,
what's a compare and contrast? Because there's definitely, as I said, there are comedic moments in all the Star Wars movies, especially in the original trilogy, which I think did it the best.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind as far as the prequel trilogies go are the very first freaking, what is it called, Phantom Menace. And they're like, this is a trade agreement or whatever. The negotiations are going to be short. And then they end up fighting or whatever. And he's like, well, you were right, sir. The negotiations were short. And it's not that funny. Like, it's not. But I was like, I don't know. It has a certain charm to it. Whereas,
more subtle.
Yeah. Whereas the sequel trilogies kind of throw it in your face with BB-8 and with his little thumbs up thing. That was kind of funny, actually. Whenever he's like thumbs up, cool. It's like, but then you have like, what was it? Stormtroopers that could fly, and they're like, and then C-3PO's like, C-3PO's, oh no, they fly now, and then I think turns back, he's like, oh no, they fly now, and I was just like, oh geez, like C-3PO saying it was funny enough, like you didn't have to join in.
Followed by the comedic death of that stormtrooper, which was a great way, I guess, needed to show that this sequence was ending, and a great send off to the next scene, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. I think something, a big difference between the prequels and original trilogy versus the post trilogy in regards to humor is that the first six, a lot of the humor is based off the character's personality and how they interact with one another. The humor comes from them being themselves and being in an environment with other people's personalities and the interplay between the two. Whereas the post trilogy just kind of has this blanket swath of like herp derp, funny joke, fart joke, your mama,
that's
punchline.
That's
What are your
totally
thoughts
what
on
I'm saying.
What are your thoughts on interaction? I think probably some of Poe's first lines when he's looking at Kylo Ren,
I don't give a
and
crap
he's
about
like,
Poe.
and he's like, so there's like that awkward silence. And like, so who's going to be doing the talking first, me or you? Like, and I felt that it was kind of his personality. I didn't mind that, but again, it's like the serious moment of Kylo Ren and this guy, this pilot.
Yeah.
And
Poe
I mean,
is
maybe
my-
maybe that's how I would act, like in a being held captive and looking at this masked creature, and I don't know much about Jedi and or Sith or anything. So I kind of like Han Solo. Remember Han Solo? He was very skeptical about the Force and lightsabers and all that. And I mean, he poked fun at the Force and all
He
that.
did.
Jedi.
Yeah. I don't know. Poe is my least favorite character in Star Wars. Period. He's even below Jar Jar for me. Like, at least Jar Jar was.
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah,
That's a
at
big
least Jar
statement.
Jar was entertaining in the sense that he was an idiot. You know, but I don't know. Poe did nothing for me. Even Finn didn't really do much for me, but I like him more than Poe. And especially the third Rise of Skywalker, where the whole time Finn's trying to talk to Rey about, being able to feel the Force, and we don't ever find out what he's trying to talk to her about ever, like through that whole movie. And the only reason I found out is because J.J. Abrams said something about it. He wanted to tell her that he could feel the Force. I'm like, well, why didn't we know that in the movie? Anyway, sorry. But yeah,
I really
Finn's
like the fan
underutilized.
theory before the post trilogy came out that Jar Jar Binks was actually a Sith Lord. Did you guys see that?
Yeah,
I
Jar
heard something about
Jar.
it.
He was
I
the responsible
love
for
that.
Palpatine.
Honestly, I think that would have been a better result than what we got.
Yeah, I mean, Jar Jar doesn't bother me as much as it bothered. I think I'm just a little more like patient when it comes. Like, I can say I don't mind The Last Jedi. It's not my favorite, right? But I don't mind it. I don't care for the fact that, like, what's his face? I forget his name, but the one that like walks up is like, I'm the spy. I'm like, what? Why did you tell us? You gotta show us.
Spy.
And then the same thing with like
stupid little lisp.
well, the thing about the sequel trilogies is they gave a lot away without, because one thing you learn in screenwriting is show don't tell, right? You gotta show the audience, not just straight up tell them. And so like that, and whenever Kylo Ren's like, you're his granddaughter, I'm like why couldn't you have created a scenario in which we find that out? Why did we need Kylo Ren to straight up? But for runtime's sake, yeah, I don't think it would have taken us that long, or taken you that long, to write in a short scene where Rey finds out she's Palpatine's granddaughter. And even so, that's it's very weird the way those three movies transpired. We could probably have a whole podcast episode about those three movies.
Yeah, was it a reveal that you think paid off? Rey being related to Palpatine compared to Luke learning that Darth Vader is his father?
It wasn't as good as the reveal.
No.
Not even close. But I don't mind that
this is a clone of Palpatine, so
yeah, exactly. But I don't mind that.
I think, right?
That
He was a clone, or was
yeah,
it
Which the movie just glosses over that.
Yeah, he's just like making.
He's back.
Yeah.
You got a whole bunch of sheaves running around making babies.
Yeah. It was really.
I wonder what the clone sheave like did for a living. Was he like a moisture farmer? Imagine this dude, like he's in the middle of what, I don't remember the planet they're on, like Jakku or whatever. Just imagine like this Shiv clone, like getting some blue milk, getting moisture farming, and then looking on the holocom, seeing himself as fucking emperor of the entire universe.
Oh my goodness! Remember that massive alien that Luke was milking, and he's like drinking the green milk. Remember that?
Oh, you're talking about on Last Jedi?
Last Jedi.
Yeah, that was weird. What I was trying to say was I think it's kind of cool that she's his granddaughter, but I think it could have been executed a lot better. Although I did like the scene with him and her together, and they're talking and fighting and stuff.
Yeah. I want to talk about lightsaber combat comparisons between the original, prequel, and sequel trilogies. Which version did you prefer more, and what's the inspiration that behind the styles?
With the 70s, 80s movies, you can't. There's not a lot you can do. I mean, special effects weren't really a thing, and you can't put a bunch of guys on a high wire to do a bunch of cool flips. I mean, it was still fun to watch. Obi-Wan and Darth Vader, Luke and Darth Vader, Luke and Darth Vader again, and so it was cool to watch. But then you get Yoda and what is it, Dooku?
Mm-hmm.
And Yoda's doing all those cool flips and stuff. And, I thought
the crowd went wild.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty dope. Like just watching Yoda, because he walks in with a cane. He's like very, very like slow and it's just old
grunting.
Because even at that point, Yoda was pretty dang old. And so then he just throws his, and then just has this like all out crazy battle. I don't really remember a lot of the battles. The only one I can think of off the top of my head was when Finn and Kylo Ren kind of went at it, and I liked Kylo Ren's lightsaber. It was pretty dope, but that's all. The lightsaber battles in the sequel trilogy didn't really stand out to me. Go ahead, Jim.
I actually kind of liked the lightsaber battles in the post trilogy. Out of all of it, I probably enjoyed those the most because, like, I think they did a good job. I think for what they did, representing that these people weren't really trained. So, like, prequel trilogy, obviously everyone's on top of their game, and the original trilogy, feels very like formulaic because like Darth Vader's old, Obi-Wan's old, they've been out of practice for so long, and Luke doesn't know what he's doing, so it's all like very formulaic. And then the post trilogy, I feel like they did a good job. A lot of it was more
like rough.
I don't know how to describe it as other than like animalistic. Like it was they're swinging them around like bats and stuff, which is terrible form, but. Like Rey doesn't know what she's doing. Finn doesn't know what he's doing. Like they've never.
Finn never knows what he's doing.
Not with a lightsaber.
I do. If I remember correctly, there was a scene or whatever they were fighting in the Force Awakens.
He fought one of his,
and he's like slamming
which they didn't bring that into the movie at all. But apparently Finn was Force sensitive as well, and that's why he was able to do that. You find that out in the like novelizations that he's Force sensitive.
Yeah, Force sensitive.
But like they're swinging things around, like they don't really know what they're doing, and I feel like they did a good job representing that. Like this terrible form, and they're just kind of wailing on each other, which makes sense if you got a bunch of kids with glow sticks.
Yeah, you got a bunch of people that don't know what they're doing.
Luke was definitely swing his lightsaber around like a baseball bat in Return of the Jedi. Yeah, I like the prequel trilogy for just the artistic dance when it comes to the battles. Very stylistic, kind of. It's apparent there's the very choreographed, but in tune with the music. It didn't bother me. And as you said, they're Jedi at their prime, the Sith are at their prime, so it's expected that since after the death of the Jedi and after Vader hunted everyone down, that the remnants are and Luke Skywalker and Obi-Wan. So they don't have that long train of talent to teach them the ways of the Force. So they're kind of learning all over again. And as the next batch of movies I've read about, at least one will feature Rey and her creation of a new Jedi Order. So perhaps we'll see more, maybe slightly going back to the old ways of fighting somehow.
Guess we'll find out.
And maybe we'll see Grogu as well. Who knows?
Yeah, Grogu.
You see like a young adult Grogu.
So what do y'all think of? I was George Lucas. I saw this video. George Lucas mentioned that, and I think I sent it to you guys that the whole prophecy with Anakin, and then people. I read something that was like Anakin was supposed to be the Anakin prophecy, but then it turned out to be Luke's prophecy, right? But then George Lucas came out and said the whole time the prophecy referred that he would bring Anakin. Balance to the Force. It always Anakin referred to Anakin, yeah. And I just thought that was interesting that people were like, "Oh, the prophecy was about Luke because Luke ends up being a good guy," and then I saw that. And it kind of made sense. It was like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess that makes sense. But then you think about it, and you hear George Lucas come out and say, no, the prophecy's all about Anakin. Like even at the end, because it went from when he's a little boy all the way to the very moment he threw Palpatine down that freaking hole. What are y'all thoughts on that?
I thought that was apparent. I was always
People don't know things.
Cut and dry for me.
It's
that made sense for me. Like the original 6 was all about Anakin Skywalker. The whole movie, the whole series was about Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah.
To the end. Because think about it, now with the expanded TV shows and stuff, we're finding more Jedi have survived and whatnot. But essentially, like, it took forever, but Anakin got them down to 2 Jedi and 2 Sith. Think about it that way. When it was made, that's literally in balance.
Yeah.
Now, of course, they've moved to a more philosophical point of view where he's brought balance between the light side and the dark side, and the new Jedi are going to be more, and I think that's why they went the direction they did with the post trilogies. The new Jedi are going to be more like gray Jedi, more neutral. They're going to be,
it's like lawful,
not as beholden to one or the other.
More like Qui-Gon. He was, in my eyes, a gray Jedi.
So, but when the movie came out, he literally brought the Force into balance. And now with the new one, he's like brought a more philosophical take of like, we're not going to be so hard-headed or so stuck on a particular order. And maybe we will find a middle ground between the two, which is basically what like Luke was saying in The Last Jedi. That's why she found like the books.
Oh yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, that was there's something I was going to say, but I forgot what it was. Let's just
talk about this stuff down. What are the quick thoughts about the streaming and how Star Wars it's everywhere now? You have cartoons, you have multiple live action shows. I think it's a good thing to have different types of shows with different tones and give people what they want. But I feel like there's kind of a, not too much. You can never have too much Star Wars, I guess, but it doesn't make Star Wars feel as special as the days before Disney got involved, where a movie was an event. It was something that you really anticipated, and it was different. Maybe it also has to do with the evolution of introduction of streaming and how movie theater events aren't as what they were before. Like you got up, you waited 3 hours to go to midnight showing.
Showings, yeah.
I did that for episode 2 and 3 with my friend. I was dressed up as Jango Fett, my friend Darth Vader. That was for, I think, 3, and 2 I was a different character. Yeah. My mom won tickets over the radio for my dad and I to go to the midnight showing for Attack of the Clones.
Last midnight showing I went to was the Amazing Spider-Man 2, and I got a cool shirt. But that was it.
What year was that?
I don't know. 2000.
I feel like Amazing Spider-Man 2, 2000.
Yeah, Amazing Spider-Man 2.
I'm on the Star Wars website.
2014.
There is 10. I would say 10 shows expanding the Star Wars universe.
Yeah,
it's a lot.
The issue, I do think it's cool. I think it's great. Like that Star Wars is this huge thing where they're able to continue to expand it with different things. Like it's not just movies now, it's TV shows, shorts, the
emphasis now is not the movies.
Right. But it does because they have to, when they create these shows and stuff, it has to go in canon with the movies. And it's more stuff you have to like learn. And sometimes you feel like me, you're like, well, crap, now I have to watch this. So everything's, so you're all in, you're in line with everything, and you
just understand like the Marvel stuff.
Exactly. It's like you watch all these Marvel movies, 10 years of Marvel movies, right? And then they're like, all right, now we're going to start creating TV shows. And you're like, oh, crap, now I got to watch these TV shows. But,
one of the best thing that's come from that, though, is the fact that they have to like incorporate all of like episode 1, like terminology in these new shows.
Besides like, midichlorians,
throughout all these shows, you have like these guys going like poodoo, like that's some swear or something, because like freaking like little baby or someone said that in episode 1, and now all these writers have to somehow incorporate this stupid
crap.
stupid lore into their serious, gritty
Lost
shows. And they're like, oh, that's a bunch of bantha fodder. Voodoo, and it's like, oh my God.
Bantha fodder. I remember hearing that was it in Return of the Jedi? Didn't they say Bantha fodder?
Uh
I don't know. I think episode one definitely one of the aliens.
I could have swore
the Bulba called Anakin Bantha fodder, I believe.
I'm pretty sure. I want to say they said, or maybe they said something like it. And
The Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah,
it was on Empire Strikes Back. It was on Hoth.
Because they were like said something like that, and I was like, oh, that's just like bullshit. It's like it's the same thing. It's just like it's Star Wars, so they're not bulls, they're banthas. It's just when I heard that, I thought that was kind of funny. I was like, well, they gotta incorporate it somehow and be funny about it. So
do you think we need to know the origin of Yoda and his species? I prefer the mystery.
I mean, if they came out with a Yoda prequel series or something or a movie,
Lucas doesn't have an idea, and that was on purpose.
Well, it's not Lucas in charge anymore. Yeah, I was say it's not for Lucas to decide if they want to do something like that. And
it's all up to Kathleen, baby.
Well, before the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, they had toyed around with a Yoda show too, right?
I hadn't heard that.
Not sure.
Pretty sure I heard something, but then they went with Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I'm not interested in that, to be honest.
I would watch it, but yeah,
it's not like we need it. Like we didn't need Solo, a Star Wars story.
We didn't need Obi-Wan Kenobi either, but it was cool.
Oh, I forgot that movie existed. Solo? Yeah. Thanks, Zach.
Yeah, thanks, Zach.
I watched it for the first time like last year. It was all right.
I saw it in theaters.
It was entertaining.
Yeah, I saw it in theaters. That was the only time I saw it.
I wish it continued solely for the fact that I wanted to see where the plot line was going with Maul and
Kira?
Daenerys. What's the actress that plays her?
I wanted to know what happened to Kira, the gal that was working in cahoots with Maul.
That's who I'm thinking of. I just couldn't think of her name.
The Game of Thrones girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Daenerys. That's what I always know her as.
I don't watch Game of Thrones.
Me neither. No. Never seen it.
I've seen the first episode, and I remember watching it. And I was with my ex-girlfriend, and she was like, at the end is like a brother and sister, and they were doing it,
Yeah.
And I was just kind of like, well, I was just like,
have you not seen it, Zach?
What? Game of Thrones?
He just said he never saw it.
No. Oh yeah, it's.
I've seen House of Dragon. That's cool.
But I was sitting with her, and that happened, and I wasn't really fazed by it, because I like weird, disturbing stuff. And she was like, "Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? Yeah. They're brother and sister." And I was like, "Yeah, but that was
not just brother and sister, twins."
Yeah, that was probably normal back then. Like, it's gross. Don't get me wrong, but it was probably something that happened more often than not. So it didn't.
Yeah, it ends with like twins banging, and then they shove a kid out of a tower.
Yeah, because
that's the end of episode 1.
Yeah, because
you're like, "Oh, I'm in for a ride."
Well, it's not that I don't think I would ever watch Game of Thrones. It's just I feel like, and I've said this before, that Game of Thrones requires, attention. You can't really be like walking around doing stuff around the house while you're watching Game of Thrones kind of thing. It just seems like you need to.
Do you think, in a way, that's what Disney is trying to do with these Star Wars shows?
Let's make them like bigger than movies, almost not bigger, but like movie quality, which I think they do a pretty good job
with the shows. Yeah, for the most part. I mean,
yeah.
Obi-Wan was an exception.
I guess I don't understand.
And Book of Boba Fett.
Can you elaborate on what you mean?
I guess the fact that they're trying to create this like
everything's got to be connected.
Yeah, like interconnected politically, because like Game of Thrones is big on that. They had all these different families and material. Yeah. You would jump from place to place. If you watched it, you would jump from place to place almost at random. And then like 3 seasons later, they would tie it all back in.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I don't think if from what it sounds like, Game of Thrones is a little more, they're a little more interconnected than say Star Wars, because, you like if you're watching Andor, you don't hear references to the Mandalorian. I don't know. Do you hear references to Mandalorian?
No,
in that show?
No, not really.
You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't seem like it's something that's now you watch Marvel shows, you hear them talk about the Avengers all the freaking time, especially in She-Hulk.
Yeah.
She-Hulk's very, very meta though. That's not really a good example, but you hear them talk about that. That's a whole universe. But with Star Wars, they don't talk about, oh yeah, there's this guy on whatever planet. The Mandalorian is that its own planet?
Mandalore.
Mandalore.
Yeah, okay. That's what I thought. And so you don't hear that. Well, I mean, they might mention Mandalore, but they don't mention this guy from Mandalore who's going around taking off his helmet. You know what I mean? So I don't think, at least not right now. Now it's very possible because it's Disney. You know, it's like we're gonna start, having this guy from Andor be on Mandalorian.
Well, when they get to the Acolyte, I'm sure. I mean, that's during the High Republic era, so there's not going to be references to Skywalker or anything.
Yeah. I guess you're right. The Star Wars series are more like vignettes within the universe.
Yeah, I would agree.
Little clusters of things.
Just
like
different adventures going on in the galaxy. It's like, and it's kind of cool that way. I like that idea. Yeah, I like that idea where I can see what this guy's doing over here, and then move over and see what this person's doing, and see what Ahsoka.
Yeah,
see what she's doing because she's getting her own show and stuff like that. So,
which Hayden Christensen is coming back for.
Is he?
I'm very excited about.
Right. What are your thoughts on the I guess bringing back Hayden Christensen for Obi-Wan Kenobi for those scenes, those certain scenes?
I was super, super excited for it, and I think a lot of people were. But
I was surprised, to be honest,
when they cast Jake Lloyd as young Anakin and then Hayden Christensen as older Anakin. Didn't it get a lot of flack for both of those? Well, Jake Lloyd was bullied.
Mm-hmm. They bullied that kid out of acting.
Yeah, he was bullied. Hayden Christensen, they didn't like him as Anakin. But here's the thing. I thought they cast Hayden Christensen pretty well because he's good at acting like a little bitch. Right? So he was in this other movie called 7 Minutes in Heaven, in which he gets in a wreck. His character gets in a wreck and dies, and he goes to heaven for 7 minutes. But then he's brought back. And the whole movie, he's pissed off at God because he's like, why would God do that? Why would God let me see this paradise and then force me to go back to Earth and the whole time I was thinking, oh my God, they cast Anakin Skywalker so well. Like, he's doing such a good job of just complaining. And that, I mean, and that's what he was supposed to do, right? Because he was a Jedi, but he was slowly being, manipulated to the dark side, showing like he's not getting along with Obi-Wan because he wants to do things that Obi-Wan's like, no, you can't right now, whatever, he's
like, a malcontent.
Yeah. And so he's very, pushing against the good side, probably without realizing it at first until he fully succumbs to the dark side.
You wanted to be on the council.
Yeah, and they wouldn't let him. Well, they let him, right? But he wasn't able to do anything on the actual council. But yeah, so with him, I thought they did a good job. With Jake Lloyd, that kid.
You know why he wasn't allowed to be on the?
Because he wasn't a Jedi, right? Or he wasn't a full-fledged Jedi or something.
He wasn't a master.
Yeah, a Jedi master.
They didn't give him the rank of the master. And the way that works is when you're a Jedi Knight, you're given a Padawan. You train the Padawan. When the Padawan is given a Padawan, they become a Jedi Knight and you become a master. And so in
Revenge of the Sith,
can't I think of the name? In Clone Wars, Ahsoka left the order. And so because Ahsoka left the order and did not get a Padawan, that prevented Anakin from gaining the rank of master.
Man,
and that's why.
That's a pretty good way to kind of what is it called? Retroact. Yeah. A storyline, because Clone Wars came out after Revenge of the Sith, right?
And it takes place between
2 and 3. And so they're like, okay, but we can't let him become a master because he has to succumb to the dark side, So it's just funny the way they have to think about this kind of thing. Like it's interesting more than anything, where they have to be like, all right, so here's going to be the beginning of the series, here's going to be the end of the series, and then we have episode 3. So there's certain things we can't do. We can't let Anakin become a Jedi Master, blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean?
You think Ahsoka has such a big impact on his life. And I mean, obviously in episode 3, I mean, there's no inkling of care. Anyway, of course, because she wasn't a character at that time. But it just, if you think about the interactions that they've had, Ahsoka and Anakin and their history together, it's kind of disappointing that it would have been nice to have that character established first and then have maybe some thoughts and dreams.
Did you say Hayden Christensen coming back for Ahsoka?
Mm-hmm.
I just realized that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's dope.
Yeah, I was like,
Probably it's going to be
just,
for a dream, for
I'm
scenes
sure
of
it'll
the
be
past,
for like
sure.
flashbacks or
Yeah.
dream sequences.
Well, when does Ahsoka take place?
It's going to be taking probably. Is it going to be around the
It's probably gonna be around the same time as
Boba
like
Fett,
the Mandalorian,
Mandalorian?
Boba Fett,
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
post,
that era.
That's too bad she won't get to. But I wonder if she'll actually interact because Darth Vader's still around
kicking
there.
around.
He's already she's already interacted with Vader.
She's already
once.
in
Oh,
Rebels.
and
she
oh
battles
yeah,
with
yeah.
him.
You're right. I've seen that. Okay.
I don't think we need to see them together again.
I would like that. It's like when Obi-Wan and Vader fought in Obi-Wan Kenobi. I wouldn't mind seeing those two go at it in live action. Is what it is.
Maybe having a conversation
she's
through
not a Jedi
the telepathic
anymore.
conversations. They could do that.
Yeah. I guess I need to watch this show. I need to catch up on these Star Wars shows.
What are your hopes for the future when it comes to Star Wars?
I don't really have any, honestly. Like,
Do you wish there was more emphasis on the movies and having Star Wars return to that event that we cared about?
I
And
enjoy.
maybe do you think Disney learned at all from
No.
the sequel trilogy?
No, but
I think they're doing a better job with the TV shows.
yeah,
I want them to expand the TV
But-
shows. I like the vignettes exploring the universe. As far as I'm considered, I feel like the Star Wars quote unquote story began at 1 and ended at 6. That's the Star Wars story. And anything else we can surround it, but I don't really think that another main storyline is necessary.
yeah.
I love learning about the universe, but I don't really need to see that storyline continue.
1 through 6 was the Skywalker saga.
Yeah, I'm good with the Skywalker
Yeah.
saga.
Yeah,
Kind of like how I'm good on Marvel. I'm good after like Endgame. I don't really care about anything that happened after Endgame. I'm good with the Skywalker saga.
Yeah, I don't know what this new saga, if it's going to be a saga, what they're going to call it, or maybe maybe they'll do away with episode numbers at some point. I feel like I don't know.
Well, maybe.
Why continue doing episodes if there's a lack of connection to the first?
Exactly. Start a new number. Give her an episode 1. Give
Or
Rey an
just-
episode 1. The Rise of Rey.
Maybe I'll begin to like her character more. We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. I enjoyed Ray, a little bit. I mean,
She didn't earn her title.
She's just kind of there, Yeah. She just, I don't know how to explain this. Like it's like Luke. He was a moisture farmer on Tatooine with his uncle. She's a scrapper, scavenger, not a scrapper. A little bit of both. Scavenger, and then they both, luck out. Well, I don't know about luck out, but get called to this big adventure. And I mean, that's a story for you. But there's parallels between episodes 4 and episodes 7, and so. But then she just kind of like I feel like Luke kind of earned his place and just he became a Jedi the way you're supposed. And then he
struggled. He
She just like she could she was force sensitive, as they say, and could use the force in the first.
She was gifted.
The first episode, yeah, she was very gifted. Apparently, more gifted than Luke, and so she was able to use it to block out what is it, Kylo Ren's invasion into her brain and all this stuff. And I don't know, it just kind of seemed like it was kind of handed to her, and then she learned how to use it. Like I don't know how to, if I'm making any sense right now. It just seems like
she didn't struggle as much she didn't earn.
Yeah. But
that's a character. That's her character.
Yeah, she just kind of was really good at it instantly, pretty much, and that's okay. Yeah, I like her better than Poe.
I would be good.
Could die. That could be okay.
If the continued trilogy was maybe her, like taking a step back and then really having to struggle with like the exceptional ability that she has, like learning because like. That trilogy was essentially an adrenaline rush the entire way. Like the Force, you could say the Force was flowing through her. But then in a time of peace, how does she like
hold it and control it?
Hold it and earn it and control it and learn and actually grow. I could see that would be an interesting story.
Mm-hmm. I would agree.
Having being such this exceptional, like I guess you could say like a gifted child, and then now you've matured and reached to adulthood, and you actually have to like do things on your own accord instead of the boundless energy that you had.
Yeah, I think Broom Boy might make a return to
what?
Broom Boy.
Yeah. He was at the end of the
Force sensitive.
He was at the end of the Rise of Skywalker
planet. Yeah, the casino planet, right?
I remember.
Yeah, Broom Boy. He became a meme, GIF. I think he might be one of the first students.
I think that implies that's probably the direction the series is going, because I think she's like the next series is her starting the school, right?
Yeah.
A
Jedi Order.
I could see her
basically what Luke did.
I know some of the video games that they're making, like Star Wars,
Jedi Academy.
Jedi Survivor?
Like Star Wars Survivor, Star Wars.
Those are the new games, yeah.
Huh?
Those are the new games.
Yeah, the new games. Those are considered canon.
Yep.
In the universe, and that follows around Cal Kestis trying to find like a holocron and like protecting like the holocron of Jedi sensitive or Force sensitive children. So I could see them tying that in as well, where she's goes on an adventure trying to find the holocron to find all these children. That could be an interesting storyline as well.
Holocron,
like a race to essentially the MacGuffin, race to the MacGuffin.
Yeah, I don't think we necessarily need a Force sensitive antagonist in the sequel trilogy.
Just like a regular dude who's super dedicated to the. He's super dedicated beyond to the Empire.
Maybe a little bit, but I mean, in the Thrawn trilogy, there's this force from outside the galaxy that comes into the Star Wars galaxy, and they're definitely a force to be reckoned with. And they don't have the Force; they're this extraterrestrial army of crazy beings. I don't know what the proper pronunciation is,
What'd
but Yuzon Vong. Got to look it up. But I don't think they're Force sensitive. But yeah, I'm excited to see what happens with Star Wars in the future. But as I get older, I'm hoping my love for Star Wars doesn't die out, especially with the saturation of content we have these days. It's got to be good content for me to be continued to enjoy it. Otherwise, I feel like I'll be like, oh, there's a trailer. There's another a trailer for a Star Wars movie. That's cool, but I'm hoping my love, my passion for it doesn't die out.
I think it's going to get to the point where you're going to have to pick. Like, there's some Star Wars movies or TV shows that I'm not going to watch. Like Star Wars Resistance, Star Wars Rebels. Actually, Star Wars Rebels is pretty good, so I might watch that.
It gets better.
But there's some TV shows that The Bad Batch, they're just not that appealing to me, and so I'm not going to watch it for the sake of watching it. I'm not going to watch it so I'm in the loop. I'll just get on Wikipedia and be like, okay, what happened to The Bad Batch that makes this make sense?
Yeah, that's one of those series I don't think you really need to watch to understand anything else that affects like the movies, for example. But I think the Clone Wars show is essential viewing. At least some episodes.
I would argue the Clone Wars and potentially Star Wars Rebels are, as far as like the main like Skywalker saga goes, those are kind of needed. But everything else is kind of like, Yeah,
it's Obi-Wan.
What's going on in the universe? You don't have to watch
Rebels. Yeah.
Huh?
Obi-Wan's and Rebels.
Yeah, Obi-Wan, Darth Maul. That follows Darth Maul more and Ahsoka more.
Oh yeah, Darth Maul. I really felt for him and his mission to find Obi-Wan. You felt more for him than I felt like you did in the live action version, obviously, because he didn't say much at all.
They did a great job humanizing him.
Well, that was fun. Star Wars.
Yeah, we could talk about Star Wars all day long. I think that we should do three episodes, like Star Wars original trilogy, Star Wars prequel trilogy, Star Wars sequel.
Getting deep in the weeds with the movies.
Yeah, I think that'd be fun.
I would do that. I would rewatch the post trilogy if we did a podcast about them.
Well, let's do it.
That'd be the first time I've watched The Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker more than once, because I've only seen those two once, and that was enough for me.
I've only seen any of the post trilogy once.
Yeah. Isn't that just, I mean, sad. I mean, we love Star Wars for the most part and watched a zillion times, or at least I have, or more than like a handful of times, the original and prequel trilogies. But it's just something about the post trilogy, the sequel trilogy, that it just doesn't appeal to everyone's tastes.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same.
I wonder how the actors and actresses feel.
I feel like
I know John Boyega
has been
upset.
Mark Hamill, he's been vocal about he didn't like the direction of Luke Skywalker.
I think Daisy Ripley was as well.
Something about, if you're going to be a part of Star Wars as an actor, just expect to get grilled.
Oh.
Just like with the new Superman actor that's going to be announced in June potentially. He's going to be attacked by social media.
Totally.
It is what it is.
That is one bad thing about these Marvel, and you don't see anybody from The Hobbit, having to do a deal with that stuff. It's like Marvel and Star Wars.
I think the biggest complaint about The Hobbit was it was shot in 48 frames.
Yeah, it
was all film nerds who were upset.
Yeah, you're right. Like, and that's what I was, when you mentioned that, the sequel trilogy is just kind of whatever. I'm like, made me think of The Hobbit, like how they could have just put that into one movie, because the book isn't that long, but they added Legolas, they added, whenever Gandalf walked away from him for a little while and stuff like that. And I'm just like, you could have condensed this in one movie, would have been fine. Or you could have shot it before you shot the freaking Lord of the Rings. But
I think it was also the age when movies started having the part 1s and 2s and 3s.
Needed a trilogy for it, and whatever. The first one was great, I thought, but then the other two were like, whatever. I don't know. Anyway, I guess that'll do it for us for the Star Wars chat, huh? Like I said, we could talk about Star Wars all day long, I think. So if we don't stop us,
talk about one movie.
I mean, yeah. We could have 9 episodes of Star Wars if we wanted to.
We could skip.
Stay tuned for future episodes, frame by frame analysis, each film, one at a time.
Get into the technical aspects of cinematography, maybe, and sound.
Yeah, and music.
Mm-hmm. The soul of Star Wars, I think, comes with John Williams' score.
Yeah, we know.
And the London Symphony Orchestra.
Yeah, we know. we know, Zach. Although, when I was watching Return of the Jedi in theaters again, I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. Just listening to music, in theaters, watching the movie in theaters, it was so cool just to be there. I wish I could have seen it when it first came out.
1983, with, instead of the victory celebration number at the end, it would be Ewoks, the Yub Nub song.
Well, and then you got the whole thing in Jabba's castle or whatever with that whole
CGI mess. I mean, I didn't mind it as a kid.
That was in theaters too. And just seeing that in theaters, I was like, okay, this isn't. I don't care for this scene.
You know what my biggest gripe was about Return of the Jedi, the 2011 Blu-ray special edition? Yeah. There's multiple edits since 1997. I don't mind the 1997 edits as it is, but after 1997, they did additional things. And my number one pet peeve in Return of the Jedi, I don't mind Hayden Christensen standing in as the ghost in place of Sebastian Shaw's Anakin.
Yeah.
I don't mind that. But he says no twice before he throws Palpatine. I don't think that was necessary. You could feel the emotion and conflict in Vader by just looking at him. You don't even see his eyes. He's looking back and forth at his son getting shocked almost to death by Emperor Palpatine. He just needed to look at him twice, and then he figured, this is enough. I'm going to get rid of this guy. And he throws him down the chute. We don't need the 2 no's, in my opinion.
So the 2 no's were added later?
Yeah. 2011, I believe, Blu-ray version. And that's the version that everyone and their mothers is seeing on Disney Plus.
And so they don't really know, about the before times. So I know we're trying to end this episode, but real quick, have you read anything about what other people think about that, Zach?
About the no? Yeah, some people think it. I'm talking people that grew up with the original trilogy. Some people really don't mind it. I think it really adds to the emotion of the scene, but others believe it does the opposite. It's not needed. It's
kind of cheesy.
You don't need to hear him say it. And as we know, I mean, Vader, for the most part, was a stoic character. And at times, I think he was most expressive in Empire Strikes Back. In his interactions with not only Luke, but the several officers that he force choked through computers and in person.
Yeah. Force choking through virtual force choke. That's crazy.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't think the nose, it wasn't a big deal breaker. I knew going into it after you told me that it is what it is, but it's definitely not needed. But it's kind of unfortunate for the people that don't know how it originally was done. Like I want to hear what their thoughts are, like if they don't have it. But there's also you have that music in the background intensifying, and those no's kind of drown out the music, unfortunately. It is. Right. One of the no's was from, I think it was copied from
Revenge of the Sith.
Empire Strikes Back. The second no, it kind of sounded like the Revenge of the Sith, but it was really cut short. But I don't know for sure.
Yeah,
I don't think they brought James Earl Jones.
No,
we don't need you to. We need you to, Mr. Jones, to say a couple lines. What are they? No.
Yeah, I remember whenever I'm sorry, I know we're trying to end this episode, but God,
you have to do a lot of cutting here.
Revenge of the Sith. Whenever he did that, after he found out that Padme died, I thought that was kind of lame. I was like,
they edited that down as well.
Well, that was just the whole thing. Like at this point,
they edited that out.
Down. They edited it down. So when it first came out, it was really long. Like, no,
really,
yeah. And they edited it down to a shorter version of it.
Lame.
When? For which version? When was this? What year? DVD version?
That I couldn't tell you.
I'll have to look.
Yeah. Huh. So anyway, when at that point, I feel like he's already Darth Vader. I don't really think he cares about his wife anymore, but he does clearly, and he showed us, and I just thought it was kind of out of character for Darth Vader to be like,
quick extra special discussion. They used AI voice technology for Obi-Wan Kenobi for Darth Vader. James Earl Jones, I read, did not utter a line of dialogue, and I think it sounded convincing in my opinion. It sounded like as if he was from Revenge of the Sith, that quality of
I'm sure we talked about
voicing
or Obi-Wan.
But what are your thoughts on AI technology being used in movies, like replicating other people's voices?
I feel like it's a slippery slope, man. Like we're just gonna get rid of actors altogether and put them, we could already make 3D models. That's what they did in Rogue One and with Leia, and I think they did it again with Tarkin, whatever his name is, in Rogue One.
Yep.
And so we may as well just get rid of actors altogether and do the AI and just pay them for their likeness. I don't know. I hope that doesn't happen, but you never know.
Henceforth, you shall be known as Lord Vader. Remember, he was kind of thinking. He was kind of thinking, Lord Vader. He was thinking of a name.
Like you didn't already figure this out before he became a Sith.
Sheev. Any last thoughts, Jake?
Nah.
No.
Dude.
We talked to we did pretty
good
credits. Job. Yeah, I really think that we could go on for a couple more hours, but we probably should call it quits here. Okay, well, thanks for hearing our Star Wars discussion. Let me go ahead and apologize now if this is too long. And so, thank you for listening to us. If you want to hit us up or give us ideas for episodes or any movies you'd like us to watch, hit us up on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And then check us out on future and past episodes on Amazon Music, Google, and Apple Podcasts, YouTube.
Only Vans is still in the works, guys.
Jesus Christ, this joke.
It's not for what you think. People, don't get too excited.
I think we've talked about this, but
don't get jittery, Luke.
Remember? He didn't say jittery.
He did.
Oh,
Han Solo says, "Don't get jittery, Luke."
I think
he's in there in the Imperial shuttle, and Luke senses that Vader's aboard the Star Destroyer.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking of whenever they're in the Millennium Falcon. He's like, "Don't get cocky."
He says that too.
But then in the Family Guy version, he says, "Don't get penisy," and it's super funny.
What the
Family
Guy?
Yeah, they did that. We could talk about that too. That would actually be a really fun episode. Anyway,
Okay.
so
How Star Wars is utilized in other mediums. Spoofed.
Yeah, totally.
Baseballs.
Well, real quick, Simpsons is about to come out with a Star Wars episode. Star Wars short short episode.
Is Mark Hamill back?
I
Hopefully.
don't know, man. I don't know. I've never seen it. It's not even out yet. I think it comes out on the 4th.
Because he was in, he did make an appearance in Simpsons in the 90s, I believe. Mark Hamill did.
Yeah, I think you're right. All right. So, yeah, hit us up on those social medias. Hit us up on, or listen to us on those podcasts, areas, places. And we will see you next time. And
may the force be with you.
And have a fantastic day.
This is the way.
Bye.